So, the first things we're going to talk about is some of the basic school rules. So all the students should be on team D, and we'll kind of explain what it means to be on the team, some of those big ideas. One of the big things that's new this year that you may or may not have heard about so far or understand is the RTP process, and that's something we were trained on at the beginning of the year. It's a responsible thinking process. What? You want to tell us? You want to jump in there?
Am I interrupting?
Oh, you want me to? Okay. You want to learn? Okay. So if somebody,
Hey,
what are you doing?
I was just gonna get his pencil, but I'm interrupting. I'm sorry.
Okay. So what are the rules?
Not to interrupt while you're talking, sir.
All right. And what happens when you break the rules?
I go to the artistic classroom.
Okay. Is that what you want?
Nope.
All right. So what are you gonna do now?
I'm going to sit back quietly and wait to talk.
Okay. And what happens if you disrupt again today?
Then I go to the artistic room.
And so what happens is we try to handle disruptions not necessarily as an authoritarian thing. It's more just, are you aware of what's happening right now? And are you aware of those consequences, and can you change it? And so what actually happens is they get one warning where we go through those questions, and if we find that same student disrupting later, then you don't go through the questions again. You kind of say, what are you doing? Are you aware that something's going on right now? And just go ahead and head down to the classroom. And it's really just a classroom is what it is, and it's a responsible thinking classroom. So they're going on there, they're kind of stuck there. They can't actually come back to class until they work on a plan and negotiate it, which means they're there for at least the rest of that hour. And if it's towards the end of the hour, they actually don't come back to our class the next day. They go to that classroom until they work out that problem and come back to our class. And they don't get to come back until not only have they made a plan in that classroom, but they've also negotiated with the teacher outside of class. So that would be like during advisory or sometime like that.
And those questions aren't really discipline, they're just a reminder, and it's just like extended warning.
Right.
Where maybe last year I just went, okay, it's just now instead of me saying, hey, you're doing something wrong, they're saying, oh, I'm telling you, they're actually physically or telling me that they're doing something wrong, they're agreeing with me, and I'm just thinking into that understanding. So
and the big
we
thing
really like it.
Yeah, it's worked really well. Our team is using it a lot. Our teachers on this team would probably use it as much as the rest of the school combined, from what I understand. My wife actually runs the room that they go to, so I hear some of the stuff about what goes on in there. And actually in that room, it's a perfectly quiet environment. That's the only thing that they can work on is thinking on their plan. They don't get to hang out and talk there. And if they become disruptive in there, then they actually can get sent home today. And then they have to make a plan to get back into that room. Or then they can make a plan to get back into our room. And that has happened a couple times this year. But again, it's not really so much of a punishment thing. It's an educational opportunity, and we recognize that the education in the classroom isn't happening if they don't know how to be a student, and the education for the other students. It really comes back to the idea that the teachers have a right to teach and students have a right to learn, and interfering with other people's rights and self-awareness and growth. So that's a big part of that. So it's automatic. When a student's late, we automatically RTP them because it's automatically disruption just for being late. And so that's like their first warning of the day. And then if they disrupt at any point after that, they go. But it's not something, we try to make it as much as possible. Teachers don't have choices about it. We're just reminding you of what you're doing, and you're choosing to go to the room. So it's only used for disruptions. It's not used if we have like a bullying issue or we have some other kind of a school rule, if you're cheating or something. That's not what it's for. It's just for learning how you impact other people with disruptions. So that's the only thing that this process is about. Other rules still have the normal school stuff, and maybe they go to a principal, things like that. And like you said, we kind of try to hammer the idea that it's not really punishment.
And we're calling those other ones probably majors. I think that's the
Yeah.
term we're using for majors. Majors wouldn't be through the RTP process. They would be through, a regular referral you send them down there. Which I haven't had any share TV.
What?
I haven't had any TV.
Majors? No. And in fact, I think some of this is helping with our culture. I don't think we've had as many like bullying issues and stuff as we typically have. And seventh grade's a hard year. We have a lot of people coming from a lot of different places coming together. And it's just hard, usually. And talking to the kids last week, I did some bullying stuff in my class. We talked about bullying a little bit. And, it's definitely happening. There's bullying, there's some bullying that goes on and stuff like that. So we're not like saying that's not happening at all, but pretty good for 7th grade, and we feel like it's pretty good compared to what we've experienced in the past. So it feels like it's a pretty cool cultural thing. Basic school rules that actually kind of flow with the process. I don't know if I need to go over those, but those are the simple school rule type things. What teaming means is that for gen ed classes, so if you have a special ed class or you have some of those type of special sport classes, you might not have these teachers, but hopefully all of the students on our team have all of these teachers for their 4 core subjects. So that's myself for math, Miss Hovey across the hall for the English class, Mr. Ratcos right next door for science, and Miss Shaw for social studies there. And so the whole concept of teaming is that for the general education classes, they should have them in this hallway, and we get to coordinate amongst ourselves policies and do things kind of the same. So you kind of see how, so some of the things that are school basic, we might go a step modified for ourselves, try to coordinate maybe things like homework and tests and not, and just be more coordinated with each other.
Sort of a mini school within the school. That's what I think.
Yep. Come on in. Yeah, and that's exactly what it's supposed to be. Yeah, it's a mini school within the school. And I don't necessarily feel need like I need to be a person talking all the time. So if you guys want, totally welcome. Are there questions on the team concept and what that means? Okay.
Now, when we get really good, his math assignments will link with my science assignments, and then the social studies and the English assignments will have something embedded in that too.
And even language arts and science.
And we're not there yet, but that's what our hope is, as we stay together as a team, and that just makes sense. So there's really no way to do that unless we spend time together.
And you guys are on a pretty cool team, best team that's ever been on. But the truth, but we've never worked together, so we're all 4 working together for the first time this year, and most of us are teaching our subject area for the first time this year. So we're going through some growing pains in terms of that organization, but in terms of us working together and personnel, it's actually a pretty cool culture on this team. So we're pretty proud of it. So hopefully.
Is it a random choice how a child got chosen to be on TV?
That's from what we understand, yes, it is.
Okay.
And from what we understand, and as you go through things, the 2 teams do things differently, and sometimes parents prefer a style or something like that. And in the past, the teaming concept hasn't been as we haven't done it with as much fidelity or faith. And so sometimes students have chosen one teacher to switch over and stuff. And I don't think they're honoring those anymore.
Because the boss lady is really, she's really into the idea of the middle school concept, and she understands the team is so, it's just idyllic for it. And we agree too.
Well, the teams are also bunched up,
Tim,
in the same hallway.
definitely on board too, right?
I don't get to be a part of a team, so.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
just kinda.
Cause I'm the art teacher, so I just gotta be,
Someday.
out there. But,
But
Someday Mr.
philosophy,
Brady
as an educator, he agrees with that.
oh, totally, it makes complete sense. I mean, I like to be able to, once they start having better plans of what's happening, I can start to integrate what I'm doing in my classes to what they're doing. So,
Yes.
but until that's really out there,
Right.
and it's a real, then it's hard for us to be able to pull that in, because we don't get to come to team time. We teach an extra class so that they can teach, so they can integrate.
Right.
So
So
I do
we,
more work
as-
than them.
I'll get that checked too.
The 4 of us teachers, we actually get to meet every day, and so sometimes we work on coordinating our content and stuff like that, or setting up special events like this. And a lot of times we wind up talking about kids and what's working with some kids, or different, issues we have with kids, and we learn from each other's success or failures in individual situations and grow as a team. So that helps us develop the relationship with the kids.
So is the other team based on 4 teachers, or are the other team based on
4 other teachers.
4 others?
4 other
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So the other team would be like Miss Celebrace, Mr. Kruger, and Mr. Burkholder. Yeah. And so then some students would have all four of those teachers and none of us. Probably. There might be some cases where for some reason that didn't work out perfectly. And it's pretty good this year though. So for the most part, I think we discovered one and we were talking about that. And things like that. But for the most part, it's working out that way. Next thing we want to talk about is grades. You will get, and actually next week is the end of the first 6 weeks marking period. So there will be a progress report sent home. And I'm purposely saying the word progress report instead of report card. Because when you're in a semester system or a trimester system, the grade at the end of a trimester or semester is the one that earns credit, the one that goes towards GPA, all those types of things, right? And so at the end of the 6 weeks, what you're really getting is a progress report.
But it looks a lot like a report card.
Yeah, it looks like a lot like a report card, and we
Like
kind of
say
make,
that at the top.
right, we make a lot of, we make it hard on ourselves by saying that because you guys know things are just starting to get rolling. We've just built a culture.
Especially the 7th grade.
Right, and our grades are just starting to
Actually
trickle in.
reflect.
Yeah.
It's still where one missed assignment can have a tragic effect, so that 6 week.
Yeah, especially this first 6 weeks, we're feeling things out, and I know for me, my grade books, I'm embarrassed. You guys have to look at it yet. There's not enough there. But I'm learning what works with the kids, and then we're developing our system and our culture of learning at this point, and so things are going to start rolling. Things get, but through all the marking periods, it takes 2 marking periods put together, plus an exam, to make the full grade, and those work on first marking period. It works on 7. So first marking period is like 40, a little bit more than 40% of your grade, and the second marking period is a little bit more than 40% of your grade, and then the exam is like 14% of your grade. I think like 43, 43, and 14% of your grade. That's how it works out. And I'm not 100% sure actually. You will have a trimester exam that will count as part of your grade.
I think the science department has made that decision.
And
That would be, now what percentage of it, I think that I can make it so that the 14% isn't necessarily
okay.
what it is, but it'll be, for just reasons of accountability, there's gonna be something at the end that, assesses that 12 weeks.
And as a math teacher, one of the things I always love to explain to kids, like the exam sounds scary, but when you look at it, it's 1/3 of a marking period. That weight is equal to 2 weeks weight, which is about what the tests are. So it's really just another, when I actually look at that overall grade, it affects it almost the same as any other test. It just feels big because it has its own letter on the report card, and the more that, and I'm a believer, and I think there's a lot that goes with, the more we worry about grades, the less we get the learning part of it. And so trying to get the grades to support the learning, not offend it, get in the way of it. So I try to explain that, yes, the trimester exam is worth a certain part of its grade and it stands alone, but it's really almost like any other test in what it actually wants to break down to be worth. Do you know, social studies, you guys will be doing an exam?
They have a free test and they'll take the same thing again.
And that'll be your trimester exam grade. And Miss Leslie, you give an exam as well at the trimester?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm asking that on purpose because I know on other teams, different teachers are sometimes not given an exam, and I just wanted to clarify to make sure that was true for all 4 classes that you guys had. Come on in. By the way, if you stand at the door, you might wind up in video when this gets replayed. So I'll just let you know that if somebody watches that later.
Just wave now.
So if you want a space where you're scared of being on video, you can there's some more seats in the back and stuff like that. So that's there. One more school rule thing that I thought of, or that we thought of. Sorry, we brainstormed this over the past couple days. It's not all me. Is athletic eligibility, and if you play on a sports team, every week we get a sheet that comes around, and teachers may mark the student down if they are failing in class or if they have had behavioral issues in that class. And the first time either one of those things happen, it's a warning, the student, and so the student is aware that those things are being marked down. The second time it happens, it makes that student ineligible for competition for a week. Alright, and then they'll check it again the next week. It's not necessarily true that because a student is failing, that they will have that mark. Alright, there is some flexibility in there. Oftentimes a teacher, especially if your grade book isn't either totally up to date or have enough grades, usually a teacher, if you have one assignment missing and it's the beginning of the semester, a teacher won't mark the students ineligible for that. Okay, usually. And we talk about that, and that's something that we hopefully don't do. So it's not necessarily something that has to happen. Teachers might not do it. I personally, speaking for myself, I have experiences growing up with eligibility that I struggle with it, and I won't mark it ineligible unless I've talked to the parents and basically received permission, and you understand what that impact is. I believe mentors and like coaches are great mentors, and I've seen sports save people's lives, and I'm really scared of taking that away because I've seen people's lives end when sports are taken away. And so I have a hard time being that guy, and taking that responsibility on myself. So that's one thing that I'm definitely, doesn't mean that I won't use it, and especially if you see a situation where you know your child is struggling and you like that type of a system, you think it helps with your child, let me know, and I will support you in that regard. Okay, does that make sense? And then we kind of all have our own things, but we try to make good decisions, and we will definitely try to communicate when that policy is impacting your child.
I think in general, it's safe to say that none of us are gonna mark a child ineligible until we talk to you, and it's at our discretion. I mean, it's a case by case thing. If the student's gonna benefit from having that be a system for them, then we'll do that. But if they, we don't want to get shut down because they can't, so it's a case by case thing, and we definitely will be in contact.
And it's probably true that people who do enter into ineligibility, there's a number of teachers who probably contact you. That's what I found.
Yeah.
It's not because of one class getting a grade, it's maybe some difficulties with any work class. It would be pretty obvious and apparent that would have to happen, it would involve this. But no one's gonna just do it sneaking in blindside.
Are there any questions on any of these? A lot of the stuff we talk about is general getting used to middle school at West policies. And so I don't know that we've said anything for anybody that's had an older sibling. It's probably similar type of stuff, except for that RTP thing was new. Are there any questions on any of this before I kind of move it off the screen? Okay. And then I will slide up and we'll try to look more at stuff that has to do specifically with our team. I'll pull this down. That red box is what it'll actually see in the video later, I think. So Team D things. These are some of the things that we have talked about, work together as a group of 4 to design specially for what we think will help our students. One of the first things we did with advisory is we built an interest-based system where the students had an opportunity to rotate their advisory teachers into the beginning of the year for almost all of our advisories, and I think and they're trying to make these activity and relationship based, and so some of us teachers, we decided we had a specific thing we were into, and we wanted to relate to students in that way and kind of build our relationships off that. Instead of the advisory being randomly assigned, we wanted to see if we could connect with our kids a little bit on something a little bit. So with the interest base, like I took kids that wanted to exercise and kind of a natural exercise and just get morning started off that way. So right now we go outside and we walk the track a lot on mornings when we do that. It doesn't mean we get to do it every day, but a lot of kids like starting out their day by being a little bit active. Track probably won't happen when it gets colder and some of those types of things, and I hope that I can talk them into like some yoga or something like that. At that point we'll do some things like that, which is so they aren't excited about that, but I think it makes it good calm, and it is kind of stressing out today, and so I'm going to try to talk my kids into that as it moves forward. Some of the other things that are going on, Mr. Ratcliffe has a Musics with a cool spelling thing where we
just share each other's likes of music, and so every student will get an opportunity. It takes a while because we 2 days a week, and some of them are interrupted, to share 2 of the songs that they enjoy, and then tell us why they enjoyed it, and then we talk about it, and I bring information about the genre, the style, and, you know, anything else. It's pretty laid back, but it's interesting, but you can really tell that every student is passionate about the music that they listen to.
And Mrs. Hovey has a pretty cool.
We're doing, I've got a newspaper group, we have a lot of kids interested in, I'm not by any means a journalism expert, but, we've got some kids interested in putting together a newspaper, so we're hoping to do that as often as we can. We're thinking it's probably a monthly thing, but they're gonna be reporting on sports. We've got some kids interested in photography, and with a couple of really great artists, so we'll have comics. And I think one of them, a pair of them, want to do like a advice column, so it's working out pretty cool. It's very student led. They are putting it together and having their own editing, and then I'll be the final editor. But it's really, really a student led thing.
So that's kind of, yeah, so some kids are choosing that little extra academic portion. Ms. Shaw, if you actually look, they got their first package from Japan. And is there a student in Ms. Shaw's advisory that wants to tell us about the cool things that are happening there? Anything you want to tell her? Anybody in Ms. Shaw's advisory?
Links in mine.
Oh, okay. Ms. Shaw, they are connecting with students across the world and sending each other letters back and forth and kind of doing this whole cultural relations thing.
She just got her Skype camera in today, so they're gonna be doing some video back and forth videos.
So, and then other teachers that are on our team but aren't necessarily these core teachers is Miss Romer and Miss Keeler. And they, I believe, both are doing kind of an assortment of various relationship-oriented games, and they mix those in over time. And then, but now that stuff doesn't get to happen every day in advisory. One thing that happens every day in advisory is Channel 1, which is actually a pretty cool news program. I like to watch it, honestly.
I like it.
And it shares a lot of world stuff. You have a question?
We also read on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yep. So we do reading, like SSR reading, the silent reading, for part of advisory on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It helps the English classes focus on writing a little bit more, because English has to do both reading and writing, which are pretty big deals. And in order to have enough time to do writing, which is something that we recommend our students do more of in the middle school, we've taken some of the reading into our advisory time, so we all read together in the morning. We all read our own book at the same time, so the teachers try to set everything down and read a book at the same time too, and we take those couple minutes in the morning to just get some reading in. And then and the WAG, hopefully you guys are aware of what the WAG is by now. WAG stands for Week at a Glance. Week at a Glance. And on Monday mornings, or the first day of the week, if Monday was a holiday, so like this week it was Tuesday. Well, it wasn't a holiday, but it was a day off for the students. We share the general idea of what we think is going to be going on this week in our classes. It's not a written in stone type of thing, but the teacher's trying to communicate to the students and to you guys what our plans are. We are working towards getting our homework more in there, so that that kind of gets planned out for the week, and in our classes, the students have written down, people can plan their, how things are going to go around the week, and maybe do things ahead of time, or things like that. So we share that in advisory, and hopefully they fill out their agendas with that information. So one way you can get it is with your agenda, with the student's agenda. Hopefully they're typing those things down there, and you can see what's happening for the week that way. Another way is via email, which Ms. Shaw has been sending home those emails lately, and if you aren't getting them, you might want to talk to Ms. Shaw and make sure she has the correct email address, or an email address at all. If you did not fill out contact information, there's those little Chromebooks out there, those little laptops of yours, and it should be open to a questionnaire. Come on in. Where you can fill out your information real quick, and it'll sort it for us.
And we can probably email you this document right here, although we have to understand what we're going to see. But I think that would be a good one.
Yep. And if you guys want to, you won't be on camera if you're kind of out in the back room. You might be on camera if you're sitting there. Ooh. I'll just let you know. So that's some of what happens at advisory. The WAG, I've kind of mentioned. Website, I do have it posted up here, is westtv.weebly.com. We'll connect you to our teachers' individual websites. It'll connect you to Power School, which is where you can check grades. We have the link connected to there. We have, we're trying to put in there the links to our textbooks, I think, are on there. All but the science textbooks are available online. And Miss Hubby has shared a username and password to get to hers, which will also, the students from that same password will have access to my Math 7 textbook, if they're a Math 7 student, and also has access to the social studies text. No, to the science
It
text.
is a science.
Yeah, the science text, sorry.
So that one login that they have, and I made all of them right at the front of their agenda, will get them to their textbooks online. And additional activities if there's something they need support.
May I add, because it's a perfect place to segue, there is no take-home textbook in science, but there is a textbook. We have an in-class set, and then we create our own, group of worksheets that are like representative of the textbook. So it's great to have that, especially if someone's ill, but I do have books that you can check out for a period of time if you feel you have to, work on your worksheets at.
Same for language arts, because our book is literally over 1,000 pages.
It's like
So we don't send them home.
And while we're talking about that online stuff, not everybody has internet resources, but if you do, we are trying to put stuff out there that helps support our classrooms and gives you guys an opportunity to do a lot. In math class, we do some IXL, is a great place to practice some of the stuff that we've been learning. I have linked to some of the IXL pages when you look at my content area. We're constantly working to update and grow these over the course of the year. It's one of the things that's at the forefront. It's not perfect right now. Don't give up on that yet. Some of us are using it better, and we're getting better over the course of the year. And it definitely, I believe it's already the place that it's useful.
How is school working yet?
Power School is working. Power School, I believe if you guys went to Fancher last year, they handed out Power School login information for parents and students. We didn't know this until about 2 weeks ago, that your login information is the same that it was last year, and they intend to keep it the same for their entire career. So that one login for students and for parents will stay the same throughout high school is what they anticipate. If you didn't go to Fancher, meaning you went to McGuire or you transferred into the district or came from other places, you didn't get one yet. And I don't know that they're giving them out to us ever, but
they can get them.
yes, they can get them. Students can get their information from either Miss Zimmer, the librarian, Miss Wazensky, the main office secretary, or Miss Lemmer, the counseling office secretary. And if you call in, you can probably talk to Yvonne, Miss Wazensky, the main office secretary, and get the parent one. And also, they might connect you to Miss Lemmer to get the parent one. So that information is available through those avenues.
But I don't think they're gonna give us a packet to send home with the kids for your code, for you to check on their grades. Get it?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that you'll be able to get, just you gotta.
Get it yourself. And the other thing is, it'll come with its own weird trivial password thing that is not easy to memorize probably. And so you can change it to something that's easy to remember. When you do, the office no longer has the ability to look it up for you. So play that how you want to, but just for information purposes.
I found it really difficult, I never did figure it out in a few minutes.
Okay, yeah,
I had all the info, I didn't know where to put it.
it's
So I
not,
gave up until my
yeah.
teachers.
It's not easy to
Not
find.
easy.
If you go to powerschool.com, it doesn't take you to the right one. You have to go through our district to get to the one that's set up for our district, which you can get either through our district's webpage or you can get through our team site. We'll link you to one that will take you to our district's webpage to log in. So that might help some of those problems. And you know what? And I think after we get comfortable using this, we probably need to do another one of these at some point to teach you guys what kind of information is available there, because we don't actually get to see. Actually, I can't log in to see what a parent sees. So I think sometimes I put out there for parents to see, and then I learn eventually, oh, you didn't publish that. So even though you can see it, it doesn't mean the parents can see it, and things like that. So they've separated rights too much, where I can't tell what you have, and it makes it hard.
Power School is big, it's Pearson, which is a huge publishing company, and that makes it a little more difficult for things to move quickly.
Yeah.
anytime we do anything.
You can go to website.
Yep.
And links you guys.
Yeah, West website
Still
has a
call me
Power
Google.
School logo. Yeah, yeah, yep.
I just saw it
Yeah.
on my phone.
Some of the abbreviations you guys use for like CW posting for an assignment, what is that? I mean, HW homework obviously, but what is class?
Okay, okay.
I mean, there's nothing at the
Right.
bottom that tells you what your little abbreviations are.
Yep, okay. Yeah, and like, so in my homework, a lot of times I'll put E at the end of them, and I've taught the kids that that's gonna mean that section is evens. Yep, and that reminds me, we have no problem answering your questions, like about stuff like that, so please feel free to ask us. One thing that I, kind of as, working with young adolescents like to do, I personally hope to see the student be the bridge of communication. And so try with them first. If you don't get the answer that seems useful or seems correct, work with us. If you get a story that seems like it might not be the whole thing, feel free to contact us. But we do like you to get their story first, and get, so that kind of information. Does that make sense? So, yeah, feel free to ask kids about stuff like that. And so as we talk about WAG, check their agenda. Seeing if they're writing it down is a good step. Even if you get it, it's good to see if they're doing their part to get it before you, with math. I see a lot of students struggle with math, and then they go home and they say, well, my mom couldn't teach me how to do it or do it myself anyway. I'm saying, well, did you show her your notes from class? No, and a lot of parents, when they go to help, wouldn't even think of that step, but if you're starting to teach the math without asking to look at their notes, what's happening is you're teaching them that the 46 minutes they spent with me isn't meaningful, and you're going to frustrate us both, because they're going to expect you to reteach them one-on-one everything that we spent our 46 minutes doing. And I've seen that happen more than once. So make them accountable for that time, and help work with them, right? So there's some of those types of things that, they're young adolescents, they're 12-year-olds. 12, 13, all that stuff is kind of fun to learn.
Advisory, like my daughter's in band, so she has advisory with Mr. Payton. Is she missing out on all of this TV stuff? I kind of feel like she is from what I'm getting at home.
There we go. Well, I'll let Denise answer the question.
She's not really.
Her experience in band is probably, if not more, equally bonding as a team.
Right.
They just do it at a different level.
But like the WAG and
He has the WAG posted in
for
every week.
each team.
Every week.
Yep, he posts them up, and then they go up and look at them, I think, essentially.
Oh.
So
He
where in
brings
our
them-
classes
he
we
brings
post
them
them
to
up
their
here,
attention.
he puts them, yeah.
He brings it to their attention.
There is a certain amount of responsibility that goes with band, I guess.
There's some problems there.
Yeah, and
With my particular student.
right. Yep.
With
Yeah.
privilege comes responsibility.
Right.
I know.
Yep. Okay, so Power School, I've mentioned the website. Text messaging. Here's actually something I want to get some feedback on. Ms. Shaw has been starting the text messaging and working well with you guys. Some of you guys are signed up for that. She can give you directions for signing up on that, which actually, if somebody peeked out there and said, hey, can we get Ms. Shaw for a minute? I'll have her give those directions. Miss Hubby has set up a similar text messaging system. I have done one in the past that I haven't activated and started actively working with you guys. One of the questions I want to ask, basically while I have some parent feedback, I know it's not everybody, so it's not really like a vote, but it's at least helping me gather an idea, is I can set up one for math class again. And in a way I have two math classes, so I have to at least do my pre-algebra one probably separate. But we could give you 3 or 4 of those things. I'm wondering, would you like me to set one up for my math class, or would you like me to try to talk Miss Hubby into letting me team onto hers so that it's less things to sign up for? It's just a text message, but yes.
Just because I'm not familiar about what this purpose serves, what would the text messages entail? Homework, classwork, tasks, quizzes, that kind of thing?
Yep. And so as a teacher, we can, so some of the text messages, some of you guys might be here because you received the information about this through the text message, and that was the way that I got home most effectively and not through a student. And so Ms. Shaw was she sent some messages home about this. We might send a text message home on the day when report cards come home and say, because we don't actually know exactly what day that is until kind of that day of. And so we might say, hey, report cards came home today. So you know it on the same day that we know it. It could also say the homework got adjusted from what we put in the WAG because the class didn't run exactly the way we thought it was going to run, and so we adjusted the homework. And it could, and so it'll be different kinds of warnings, different kinds of things that we might have you aware of. I have used it in the past to try to send my homework home almost every day. It's just there and it's available. Ms. Shaw has used it a lot. Students have signed up for it that have their own cell phones, and they're getting the text message at the end of the day as a reminder. But parents can sign up for it too. Pretty much anybody can sign up for it. And the way it is actually we don't have control or even know who signed up for it. We just broadcast it out there, and whoever signed up for it receives those messages. Okay. So, do you want to explain how to do the text messaging, or no?
I sure can. Yeah, or I think it'd be easier to do an email if we've got their email addresses and then they got it.
Okay.
And Mrs. Huppy
We
has
can do it,
hers
right?
like,
Okay.
yeah. And basically it'll kick in. Is anybody in here getting the text, the Remind 101? Okay. I think when you officially sign up for it, it'll kick back and say, please, let me know your name. And then you're just on a list, and I just send a text and it goes all out to 100 people or whatever. So
you're gonna send an email?
I
for us
can,
to
and I
sign
can.
up if you need to? 'Cause
Yeah.
I did sign up with Miss Huddy, but I'm not receiving it.
I don't think
Probably
she's
hasn't
used
sent
it yet.
anything
Oh,
yet.
okay,
Yeah.
that would be fine.
Yeah. So, and that is, Mrs. Hubby's is out there, and I'll try to dig mine out real quick. Otherwise, it is on my website as well, and I can do an email. But make sure we got your email if you're not receiving an email from us. So, okay.
Okay. So that's text messaging. I kind of asked the question. Give me feedback. Would you like me just to give you another? It's only once you sign it up for it. It's not really like it's more. I guess it's just a matter of doing one more. You got one more person to sign up for it. So you guys don't really care. Then I'll just.
Either way. Some
All right.
people pay actually per text message, I guess, maybe.
Right.
I guess.
Right, yeah.
Unlimited, but.
Okay.
And also, you can do it by email. If we're talking about Remind 101,
Okay,
you
you
don't
can
have
follow
to
up
text.
on
You can
that.
actually get a text.
All right. I will put when I'm done with this. I will write the directions on the board. I'll make that my last thing. And I will teach you guys how to sign up for text messages for math class, and I will start using that. Okay. Supplies needed for class. These are pretty general. Any class, you need to bring that agenda. That's the pass to go to the bathroom. Any class, you bring a reading novel book in case anything's going on in class or there's free time or whatever. You should always have that ready as a, there's some emergency, I gotta walk out of the room type thing. Read your novels. All right. Somebody's coming in to watch it. They don't necessarily can't teach my class. So read your novels. And obviously something to write with. This is a pretty big deal, actually. It affects my teaching way more than it should. I can buy a couple hundred pencils, and they disappear really, really, really quick. I definitely lose, if I have them available, about 10 pencils a day. All right, and that's a lot. That's a couple thousand for the year, and I can't keep up with that. So the other day I brought in construction pencils because I thought they were big and gaudy and weird, and I don't have those. So I have tried the 3-foot pencils. I've tried all kinds of stuff, and I can't keep them. So if your student keeps track of their pencils, yay. If you ever run into 5,000 pencils for $5 and you feel like donating to the school, or the little golf pencils, something like that, if you run into those types of things and you donate them to our team, that would be awesome. But yeah, that's a big deal. Each class then obviously has their own textbook. All the teachers like to have their own notebook that's for their class is another big deal. Having one notebook where your English notes are in front of your math notes, in front of your social studies notes, makes them not really notes. A lot of times, it's a place where it's something that you've done and thrown away. To have your math notes from 3 days ago, three pages behind, so when I'm talking about stuff in class, you can go back and look at it. Really helps. Or to be able to review your notes that way for a test. It's pretty cool. So a notebook for each class kind of is a big deal, and obviously you want to bring that stuff to class. A folder. I'm not picky about a folder, but I think they should at least have a folder for taking home. Keeping stuff organized to go home. Inquiry-based instruction. Here's a TV thing that's one of the things that all the teachers try to embrace, and it is not traditional. It's probably not the way you went to school where the teacher told you what to do and you did it until you felt like you got it. Inquiry-based instruction means the teacher is more responsible for asking questions that guide the students to understand things and figure out the answers. In math class, it becomes, we do a lot more talking about why things happen than how they happen. And a lot of kids don't understand what I'm even getting at when I say, what does multiplication mean? Okay? They understand that 7 times 6 is 42, but I'm trying to get them to understand that we're talking about 7 groups of 6 things, so that they have that, and they can apply it to story problems and stuff like that. And then we, in math, like so my personal philosophy of math is I actually never teach anything new. Everything we do in math is based off understanding stuff that you already knew and applying it to a new question. All right? If it's not logically built off of what we already understand, then we're not there. Okay? Which means I don't actually have to teach you how to do the things. What I have to do is ask the right question, and then as a class we figure out how to do them, and then we go back over it. Okay, what did we learn? And we, so that's part of it. Question on that?
Well, I have specific math questions, I don't know if you just have it here or.
Sure.
I know that that particular portion has been a very severe source of frustration. And one of the comments, and I understand it, is that you've already learned, you should have done this last year. But apparently if they did, they didn't get it, or they didn't carry it through.
Right.
How are you handling that? Because as parents, I don't know about everybody else in this room, the way that you teach math now, even from the young elementary, is completely different than the way we were taught.
Right.
So everything we try to teach to our kids is frustrating for you, it's frustrating for them, and as a parent doing homework after work, it's frustrating for me.
Yep. Yes. And so one of the things we see is, so the way they were taught that before was that they were modeled what to do. When they come to me and they don't have it anymore, what that means actually is that they didn't learn it, they were taught it. And so when we look at that and we realize that's a critique of the system under which they were taught, right? And so that's one of the things we discover is as we go into this more inquiry-based model, what I'm doing is I'm trying to use that. Now it doesn't mean that that student needs to know everything. The class functions with participation because some students get through it, and even some students make mistakes. Mistakes are actually the best thing that can happen. All right? Because then we learn that. Sorry, I don't want to.
Then Ross stepped out and that
All
was
right.
fine. That's all right.
So what's awesome about it is actually those mistakes come out, and we get to address those misconceptions. So I would say a large percentage of the time that I'm spending in class is actually dealing with things that we have already learned. I actually probably spend more time on the stuff we have already learned than anybody who teaches in a more traditional system. Because I can get you to memorize stuff that you don't understand, and you won't actually learn it, you'll memorize it for a short term, if I'm just telling you what to do. But if I have to help you understand why it works, then we're going to recuperate a lot of those mistakes. And so we do spend a lot of time on that.
I just want to make sure that right now is like a crucial point, especially for people who struggle in math. Things are getting harder and harder for, I'm not an idiot, but at home, I don't use a lot of what you're teaching in math class right now. So trying to get through that is rough, and I don't want to see in 7th grade, my daughter already to do math and not be able to do it.
And the other thing I would talk about, use the word frustrating for everybody and stuff like that. There's a certain amount of that struggle that is useful, and a certain amount that's not. And so one of the things that I talk about, and I think this hopefully made it home to students somewhat this year, and I've said it for a couple years, but I don't know that's actually made it through, and I feel like it did somewhat this year, is I more want my homework to be done on a time basis. So I'll give an assignment, and I like students to do about a half hour of that work. And even if you're not done, I'd rather you stop at a half hour, because that's about as much frustration as you can handle, right? You've either got it or you don't, and I'd rather you come back with questions than keep doing something broken, right? And with my pre-algebra students, I extend that time to an hour. I expect them to handle a little bit more frustration. The way it goes. And so does that help a little bit with math? And I think we could totally talk more, and there's a lot of reasons why I do this and that type of stuff. But I won't necessarily put that all on this video. But thanks for asking the questions. All right. And one thing, so in my class, when I do inquiry-based instruction, another part of it is that the students are critiquing each other's progress. And so I teach the students, and one of the things I've been working on is as they help me work through a problem, we raise hands to give answers and stuff like that. When somebody makes a mistake, I actually try not to fix the mistake. I personally don't fix it. What I hope for is for the students to jump in and fix it, and I don't expect students to raise their hand to fix it. That's where students can kind of jump in and interfere and say, all right, wait, we made a mistake here, let's stop. Obviously, I know if there's a mistake made, and I'm not going to let it stay there forever, but I try to allow some of that thinking time, because that's one of the big things we're trying to get is that critical analysis thinking process. And we want students to honor the thoughts of each other and grow from that, and that's where we think a lot of learning will happen. When, instead of taking it from an authority figure telling you what to do, you're actually deciding does it work or does it not, and investing in that process of learning is where it's something more solid. Oops. Okay. I don't think you got it. You're alright.
So awkward.
It's okay, Sophie.
So awkward though.
So a lot of that is the peer critique is part of the inquiry base, and it's student-centered. That's what it really comes down to. So it's displacing the authority from somebody on the front and trying to help the students become the masters instead of becoming mini models of yourself. Okay. Grading policies. First of all the classes have some version of retakes to support the grades and improve grades. So when you have a problem, there's something out there probably that can be done to fix it. Right? When a student decides to take responsibility, they can learn more. They can demonstrate more learning, get their grade up. Okay. In math, my class is kind of extreme on that end, where practice is practice and it doesn't count towards your grade. What counts towards your grade is your final understanding. Now, you can take a test, and with my test, I actually really only offer 3 grades. I offer 50%, which means you don't get it yet. I offer 80%, which means you understand it, but you can't necessarily apply it, can't use it, can't extend it. You're not ready to use it, but you kind of get some of the idea of what's going on. I'm not going to say you don't get it at all, or 100%, which doesn't necessarily mean you got the test 100% correct, but it means that you understand the concept well enough, you've mastered the concept that you're ready to move on, and ready to use it to move on to the next piece, which is kind of inquiry-based. You need to understand these things before you move on. All right? And my tests are available for retake at least until the trimester's done. Okay? So you get one of those grades. If that grade's not the one that you want, it means that there's a weakness, and we should keep working on that. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen for the whole class. At that point, then it's kind of individuated, separated out, and we're going to work on things somewhat individually and what we can do with the retake types. I'm trying to just.
If they take their test yet?
In Math 7 and Pre-Algebra. In Math 7, most of my students were taking their second test today. Some of them didn't get the first test, and that got weird. So tomorrow is I'm making Fridays my retake mastery day, and we're kind of work on that and finish the second test, or go back and take the third and make sure everybody's caught up. And then if they are caught up and already have grades, we're going to look at which ones they need to retake and do. On my retake days, I also use the IXL to support concepts that you haven't mastered, and reinforce that, and we go to computer lab on those days.
If there are kids who are struggling, is there something, like, are you setting up certain times to work with those kids, or is there something that can be done to help them that isn't included in the class?
Yep, I'll talk about, some of the extra availability for support. All the teachers, our meeting time is 4th hour that we meet and as a team and talk and get our chance to talk about it. For students that have 4th hour lunch, we would sacrifice some of that for that purpose, okay? Which then also means all of us have 5th hour lunch personally as teachers. So we have your students, and that's not, okay, that's a lie. Science does not have 5th hour lunch. Mr. Rackos has a 5th hour streams class, which we all are technically part-time yet. So science isn't necessarily available during 5th hour lunch. So that's one thing that could affect some of the kids. Other than that, lunchtime is probably one of the first things because the kids are actually here. There's some potential to do some things during advisory at a given point, especially during that beginning when we're watching Channel 1, and the 4 classes are right here, so that might be easy to work back with, so that's a good time to ask. And then before school and after school, a lot of people are here before school or after school on a pretty consistent basis. They're really good about it. Women across the hall pretty much are. So Mrs. Hubby and Mrs. Shaw are here a lot before school and after school, so that's pretty good. I definitely can be when asked for, and if the student lets me know, then that's if a student's advocating for themselves, they're gonna get more help. And that's one of the difficulties in middle school is you have 46 minutes in a class, which is totally different than elementary school. It's hard, absences get way crazy harder, because you don't see a kid for a whole day to try to figure out what they're missing and tell them that student advocacy for themselves is huge in middle school, and it's a shame that it's a huge one big transition all of a sudden, but that's kind of where we're at. That's one of the things we're having the team helps out too, though. We talk to each other about this too. Correct those things. There is some after-school tutoring available from CMU students on Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. And then there's Peak available as well. So those are some external sources besides these teachers. Question?
Where do we get information about the tutoring? Is it something you sign up for? You get paired with a certain student, or is it just general?
That I was just told about earlier this week, and I know people were there yesterday giving away food. Students that came by, and I don't think students came by to get tutored, but they walked in the room and got some food because if the students happen to be around after school.
So
I don't know enough. I know that it's college students coming over on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they're interested in tutoring. I don't know if there's any kind of sign-up sheet, or if they're just there.
Okay, I guess I'll just try to figure out more information for this, like how long it lasts, and you said it's the library?
Is that something you can include in the email that's gonna be?
Yeah, so I'll try to clarify more of that. Yep, clarify tutoring. And I thought it was going to be in the library, is what I think we originally were told. And then I know from having been around yesterday and checking into it, they actually went across the room and said arts and P room, and a bunch of students weren't there because P is usually in the library. So I don't know, maybe they moved it over to that room. So yeah, I did clarify a lot of this for you. I just know that it's something that's available on Tuesdays. Okay. So that's there. So I talked about my correction grades. Social studies has categories, so each of those categories are going to be mathematically balanced out to equate to that weight. And so you have to look to see which categories students struggling in to improve that grade. Okay. English and science will be total points-based system, and so you can see what assignments were worth a lot of points that are not doing as well when you need to improve those grades. Science tries to approximate to these percentages by the end. That's what the total points should get, somewhere close to those as well. Okay. I kind of mentioned extra support, addressing concerns, the email. Hopefully we have the email correct and you've been receiving the WAG. If you haven't been receiving the WAG, you can either log your information in on the computers out there. If you've never did that, if you did that and for some reason you're not receiving the WAG, let's check with Ms. Shaw and see why and see if the email's correct.
How many times have you sent that out?
The WAG, I believe, has probably only been sent out on the last maybe 2 Mondays, maybe 3, twice the last 2 Mondays. Okay, and so if you haven't received it on those 2 Mondays, then it probably is an email error.
Does it get changed on Mondays or if you're going to?
Oh, and there's we might have a lot of things changing on Monday morning.
Okay.
Sometimes we change it as a Google Docs, so it can be changed live while people are looking at it and stuff like that. And so once you actually get it once, if you save that link to where you're viewing it, you never need to open up that email again because we always change that same document. So if you bookmark that, so if you bookmark that link, you should be able to go back to that same link at any point and see what's happened on it. Okay. And that's that's a cool technology piece there. And then, so the team meeting time, we meet during 4th hour, which is the one you can't read in yellow here, but 10:35 to 11:17. So that's when we get together. If there are issues where a parent needs to address the group of teachers together and see what's going on, or you're just curious, whatever, that's the time to call school and they can pass you through to us, or set up a meeting to come meet with us. That's kind of the time that's most convenient for getting a hold of all 4 of us. So that's 10:30 to 11:15-ish. And a lot of times we might, when we do start getting some parent meetings, we might try to do like 20 minutes of that, so that we can kind of more easy to. But that's how that works. Other visits, you guys are welcome to come by. I know I'm one of the people that if you feel a need to sit in the classroom, either because you want to see how the teaching happens, you have questions about that, or you want to see how your student is working in the classroom, let us know. I'm accommodating to that, and we talk about that every day. I think we're kind of all accommodating to that. So if you felt a need to walk through your student's schedule, I bet it could happen. So,
I think I might want to.
okay, you might want to set something like that up. See it? All right. Yes.
I know MAPE testing is coming up soon.
Yes, next week.
We all think,
Yes.
how are we as parents and teachers getting the kids ready for the MAPE testing? Because I know it's gonna be a little bit different than what they did in prior years.
Okay.
If any of them did any.
Okay. So, are you talking about making sure that they are well fed and
Well,
rested?
that and how to get them to not freak out.
Oh, over the meats and stuff?
Because I know my kid hears test and oh my god, but they don't realize that it's not really a grade-based test.
Correct.
It's a test on what you know.
Yep. And they've been tested quite a bit this year, actually. So we might just flow along with what's normal at this point. For those guys that don't know, so one of the things they make us do as teachers is we pre-test kids. So at the beginning of the year, before we've taught them anything, we have to pre-test them to see where they're at. So we all did that for the most part this year, at the beginning of the year. Then we learned about this new NWEA test, which I personally love. I think it's an awesome thing, and I have some really good information, and it's helped us learn a lot about students and helped us figure out which students need extra support. We actually looked at the files and said, oh yeah, they do need it, and we didn't know. And
Right.
some of that stuff.
That's
So we
what
kind
I
of
was kind of worried about because I know mine walked into middle school with an IEP. So I'm kind of.
is the
I know.
IEP being taken care of? Has anybody?
Nobody has contacted me. I know nothing about anything other than MAPE testing is next week.
Stick around and talk to us specifically about your kid a little bit, and let's make sure that we're doing what we are legally obliged to do for you. Okay?
Don't the teachers know, I mean, don't they look at each student's file and see if they have an IEP?
Students in the
I bring that
district,
to attention.
students in the district were usually told about it, and so one of the things that we did, we don't sit down with all the IEPs at any given point necessarily, or with all their CA60s in this file that each student has. We don't necessarily sit down with all those. We are alerted to kids with IEPs, but sometimes there's a break in that process. Usually there's not a break within the district, usually it has to do with students that moved into the district and things like that. And this NWEA test actually alerted us, and we found 2 kids that we weren't aware of were needing accommodations because their test scores on this thing said, let's look and see what they've been getting in the past, and we figured some of that stuff out. So there are breaks in the system. We've tried to address them as soon as possible as we can. And so we've been doing that testing actually up through this week. So 2 weeks ago we did math. Last week we did a reading assessment, and this week they did I don't think it was a writing. It was another English thing. It might have been maybe some kind of writing. I don't know exactly what it is. But I know I got math results, and I thought they were very informative and honestly the best data I've ever seen. As far as helping me understand better than looking at his report card. His report cards mean how much did the teacher like you, and some of that type of stuff. Answer how much do you do what you're supposed to, not how much do you know. Happens a lot, and NEAT tests aren't necessarily that reliable either. I've seen a lot of NEAT tests where they bounce up and down, and it's multiple choice. And what we just took was an adaptive test, which means if a kid struggled, it asked easier questions until it got to their range. And if a kid did well, it asked harder questions until it got to the range, and kind of sorted out stuff in there, which was a total cool thing that we've never had access to. So it's on computers. Every kid took a different test that modified it to match them. And so we got some really good information from this. Kind of a cool thing.
Are you kind of backtracking? Like for math specifically, are you kind of backing up when you see that the majority of the kids are at this particular level, or how are you handling that? Like when the homework comes in and you got a half an hour where, let's say a majority of the kids have 20 problems, there's a few who have, 40 or whatever.
Right. Well, and yes and no. Some of that, we would call that formative assessment. It helps us decide, and the verbal part of the formative assessment helps just as much as the written part. And so, like today, when I graded homework with the students in my class grade their own work, which is part of the quality work process, is learning what your mistakes are and fixing them. And so I asked them which questions do we need to go over. So when we grade the ones that students have helped me fix today, is what happened. And we went over ones that they specifically said, they did. And then I rarely, because I'm still doing the inquiry-based thing, I often am not then going through and showing them what to do. I'm getting student participation to do the next steps. my own tests for a little bit. Sometimes that means I go back. For instance, right now, one of the main concepts that we worked on this trimester with both pre-algebra students and with the Math 7 students, pretty much all my students, is working with negative numbers, the operation of negative numbers. We are not mastering that at the rate in which we need to. It's a topic that can only occupy a certain portion of our year, so I can't keep teaching until they all master it. Some of it's going to be moving on, and it's over time we have to work with it. Something like that is one of the first grades that I got in my testing bank. It's going to start out as low grade. It's going to go in there as an assessment. A lot of students are going to have 50% or 80% on it right now. Even at this progress report time, the first 6 weeks when it comes home, it's going to be probably pulling down that grade at that point. Okay? They have until the trimester to really prove that they've mastered that concept. Hopefully we get working with negative numbers mastered by the end of that 12 weeks. So that's something from this year that we're talking about. And then also in the old stuff, I do feel I pick up a lot of things like that. Place value and rounding. You'd be amazed at how much students struggle with place value and rounding. I'm amazed, I guess, because it seems like one of the early things that we did. But a lot of students can't round at this level.
It's the student side, it's like you're calling on the students to try and have them explain to each other how things are working.
Yep.
And again, old school, me picturing my teacher up there showing us the link instead of, are you kind of focusing on one student who gets it and they're explaining it start to finish on how to do it,
No.
so that it's not broken and kids aren't getting
Nope.
lost?
Nope, that's definitely going, so there's definitely a written model that we're going over together. And so as far as doing one consistent problem all the way through, so that you just get to see it, talk through, is what you're hoping, and sometimes we get out that way.
That is really honestly what I'm hoping.
Right,
Just because
that's, there's a certain percent that are done that way, but a lot of them are not. A lot of them are calling on one student, calling on students that struggle as much as, so some of it's student participation, and then when students don't participate, they struggle. I, as a teacher, try to develop an environment where I honor mistakes. I value those as much or more than correctness. I never accept, I don't know when I call on a student. I always force them to give me their best thinking at the time, because I can work to fix your thinking, but I can't force you to start thinking. And so I stick on students. So that's something that happens at the beginning of the year with a student. That there's some student who will refuse to answer, and it'll take me 5 or 10 minutes on one student to get through one thing that we just did 30 seconds ago. But they've learned this mechanism that if I don't, he'll eventually leave me alone. And I don't tolerate that. So I don't do that. But we do build an environment of respect and stuff, and people learn of that. One of the things I do is I put groups together. I use the seating chart that I made, I use those test results. Those test results that I thought were so great and valid, I use those to build my seating chart. So that I put students next to students that I thought could help them on different issues and that. So if I could put them with peers, that would be useful in that way. So I will never undermine the authority of student learning, and that can be tough. When I help a student on a one-on-one basis, I do an even better job. I'm extremely patient. You will not break me to get me to tell you what to do. It won't happen. I will sit next to you for as long as I take, and I'll go back as far as I have to go back to build on a place that I know that you understand to get you to where we need to get you. And so, let's see what I do. Are there other questions? Alright, I will do this, and this will be an hour long.